Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. Everyone's so happy to see a person in person. Good morning, everyone. I'm Julie Aronica, Board Chair-elect for Common Ground. I'd like to welcome you to the 2022 Legacy of Hope Breakfast. I'm delighted to welcome you, and I'm delighted to be with you in person today. I also would like to welcome our streaming audience. In my day job, I'm the Director for Plan Initiatives and Community Outreach for Blue Cross Complete of Michigan, Blue Cross's Medicaid plan. Our health plan proudly manages health services for nearly 340,000 Michigan citizens living in poverty. Many of our members have accessed behavioral health care through Common Ground, and we're very proud to be a sponsor of this event. This morning you will hear about the state of the agency from President and CEO Heather Ray. Then we'd like to share a short video presentation honoring Common Ground's 50th anniversary. We have been having a great time celebrating all year. We have a very special keynote speaker for you, Susie Kamen, a licensed therapist and host of the popular podcast, Grow Your Guru. Susie is also a former Common Ground volunteer. She'll share an overview of the state of the community and Common Ground's critical role. And last, you'll hear from Board Chair Kay White, who will outline our current priorities and the important role you all play in helping us achieve our vision. At this time, we'll ask the Wabic staff to begin breakfast service. While they're serving, I'd like to recognize some very important supporters of today's events, as well as Common Ground throughout the year. We would not be able to host this event if it wasn't for our very generous Legacy of Hope sponsors. Thank you to silver sponsors, Bank of Ann Arbor and Havenwick Hospital. And bronze sponsors, Blue Cross Complete, Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan, and the Hutton Locker Group. Additionally, we have several groups that collaborate with Common Ground throughout the year that deserve recognition. Thank you to Facials Against Suicide by Heavenly Day Spa, Kemp Klein Law Firm, Mind Over Matter, Oakland Community Health Network, and the Ride to End Suicide team. Because of your ongoing support, we're able to host many programs and services that you will learn more about today. We'll be back with our program in just a moment. Thanks, everyone.
Good morning. Good morning. We'd like to start the program, please. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. And Julie, thank you for the warm introduction. I'm pleased to present to you the State of Common Ground. Our last in-person Legacy of Hope fundraising breakfast was in spring of 2019, and it feels so good to be able to see friends, supporters, and funders joining together to celebrate Common Ground's 50th anniversary. For the last 50 years, we have delivered services to Oakland County, and we are honored to do so and continue to do so. So thank you for helping us celebrate today. Before we look at our present and future state, it's important to understand the impact of COVID on our organization. I'm astonished that Common Ground has accomplished more than just surviving the pandemic. When I rewind back to April through June of 2020, our focus was simple: keep staff and people served safe from the spread of COVID-19 and keep our doors open. I remember getting a call from one of our staff that the Broadway Embroidery in Lake Orion wanted to donate handmade masks for our staff, which were used until we had access to personal protective equipment through Oakland County. Our supporters mobilized and dropped off PPE at our administration building in an effort to keep our crisis services going. There's nothing like a pandemic to make an organization move quickly on improving technology. Our phone system was a landline, and the younger people in the room probably don't even know what that is. Our resource and crisis helpline needed to answer calls remotely, so within a few weeks, we had a new phone system to accommodate remote work for those who could. We also learned that we needed to develop an entire system of remote work, which little did we know at the time prepared us for being chosen by the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services to provide the Michigan Crisis and Access Line for calls, texts, and chats statewide in April 2021. The statewide Peer Warm Line was added a few months later, and in a few months from now, the Michigan Crisis and Access Line will include Frontline Strong, which is a crisis line for first responders who are struggling with stress throughout our state. We also learned that people wanted an alternative to appointment-based in-person services, and the demand far exceeded the capacity of the provider system in our community, and it still does. The benefit of the pandemic was and continues to be the destigmatization of seeking behavioral health services. People young and old and from all walks of life and socioeconomic backgrounds were stressed, anxious, depressed, and seeking help. Our new behavioral health urgent care was part of our vision in 2019, but needed to be prioritized as a telehealth service to meet the increased need for on-demand services, meaning no appointment necessary and no transportation needed. We designed our behavioral health urgent care so that we never had to tell a person who was seeking mental health services urgently that they had the wrong insurance. We started with behavioral health urgent care telehealth just this past Monday, starting with adults. We also had to launch many other technologies that assisted in us delivering crisis services remotely, transferring information to and from emergency departments, and software apps that made our service environment more accessible and safer. The pandemic continues to have a profound effect on work shortages across our country. Like other providers around the state, the behavioral health worker shortage is, in part, caused by a sharp increase in people seeking help. People of all ages have prolonged stress, increase of substance use, and have abandoned the idea of stigma and are seeking behavioral health services, which is a good thing. More behavioral health services are needed, especially those with non-traditional hours of operation and have on-site options as well as telehealth. Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, just doesn't cut it. The pandemic didn't stop Common Ground from being a leader in key state and federal public policy, such as participation in work groups, task forces, and publications that improve access to crisis services for all people. I am proud about Common Ground's collaboration and influence to make crisis services on the same level with other community emergency services such as police, fire, and EMS. And we have been involved with key public policy decisions at the federal level. In my more than 35 years of working in the mental health field, I've never seen crisis services prioritized as they are today. At our Legacy of Hope breakfast in 2019, I stood before you and shared my vision for crisis services in our state. And I quoted Dr. Ken Minkoff, a good friend and expert in behavioral health field. He challenged us on how to think about crisis services. He said, imagine your house is on fire and you need help. You call the fire department and they ask you what type of homeowner's insurance you have before they decide whether they can respond. That would never happen. And public policy is headed in precisely that direction. And our board and the Oakland Community Health Network were catalysts for changes to the Michigan Mental Health Code that set the stage for major change. Soon, if you're having a behavioral health crisis in your home and you call a mobile crisis team, not the police, they will come. If you or a loved one needs crisis stabilization services, health insurance will not be a barrier. And soon, you can call 988 instead of 911 for behavioral health crises. Our state has put a stake in the ground with the Michigan Crisis and Access Line, mobile crisis teams, crisis stabilization units. It will be a community benefit for all people. Last week marks the one-year anniversary of Common Ground's operations of the Michigan Crisis and Access Line, where we answered 70,000 calls just last year as part of the startup. When 988 is implemented later this year, the state projects our calls will increase to 400,000 people accessing the crisis line. We were asked by the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services to develop a resiliency center in Oxford to help the community heal from the mass shooting at Oxford High School, which occurred on November 30th, 2021. The center, which we named All for Oxford, is a community healing space for survivors of this horrific crime. We got the keys to the space in Oxford on Monday, and we'll be working with volunteers and vendors to furnish the space in preparation for the opening. I already talked a little bit about our behavioral health urgent care, but I want to give you the size of the service that we're expecting. So 15,000 additional people served per year for next year. That's what our projections indicate. And I think it's going to just grow and grow from there due to the level of need in our community. Common Ground, we don't have all the answers, and we certainly cannot bring needed services to bear alone. It takes public and private funders, collaborative partners, determination, and hearts filled with a sense of mission. Some people in this room may remember 1971, when Common Ground was founded by students, teachers, and parents who volunteered to answer calls from young people in crisis. Now we have over 400 staff serving nearly 165,000 people last year through calls, texts, chats, mobile crisis team in Genesee, and walk-in services at the Oakland Community Health Network's Resource and Crisis Center in Pontiac. So what's next for Common Ground? Well, certainly preparing for 988, which is the equivalent to 911 for crisis services. But we have a lot of work to do ahead of us, And as the CEO of Common Ground, my priority is operational excellence, meaning we must build a strong foundation from which to operate all programs. The great work our staff are doing every day must be supported by a focus on them, their training, efficient processes, and systems that prioritize the person served while meeting expectations for high-quality care, outcome reporting, and the finances to keep the programs going strong. Operational excellence is not tantalizing, but with a focus on this excellence, we can fulfill the community's expectation of us for another 50 years. As we celebrate our 50th anniversary last year, we did it in style. We celebrated our history with former and current staff and volunteers, and a fundraiser with community supporters, legislators, and commissioners. We shared this video, which captures some of the important milestones of this great agency through the eyes and the words of the most treasured friends.
Back in 1970, and has grown today to over 350 people involved in crisis intervention and treatment. It's been an incredible growth story.
Common Ground was really founded to fill a community need, a gap. And I don't think that's changed. I think that's where we still have our eye.
I think I came in on the end of the hippie years, which were years of, from what I gather from the people who were here before me, of talking people down from bad trips.
You need a place where you can turn to that's got the expertise and the knowledge and the experience to deal with people in crisis. What we do is unique. Our history of being developed by volunteers initially who saw a need and stepped up to fill it.
The model, which we use for answering calls, has stayed the same all those 50 years. Somebody who had volunteered in the 70s could come in and answer the phone today because the model is the same. We found something that answered people's needs.
We're seeing a decrease of people going to emergency departments and a major increase of people walking into this crisis center. Common Ground is the only behavioral health crisis service provider for a county of over 1.2 million people. And so our community is relying on us to be here when they're in crisis.
We can move people from crisis to hope, and we do it better than anybody else in the whole world.
There's tens of thousands of people that are alive today, I believe, because of Common Ground. Little Common Ground has saved well over tens of thousands of people.
Thank you for your dedication and service. The people that have made Common Ground what it is today were selfless, and they just keep coming to work and doing a fantastic job.
Common Ground Crisis Line.
On behalf of the board and staff of Common Ground, please show gratitude to our major funders. Thank you. I just love seeing the transformation and growth of Common Ground highlighted in the video, and I can only imagine what the next 50 years will look like, serving the community and helping people move from crisis to hope. Now, I'm honored to introduce our keynote speaker, Susie Kamen. Susie is a licensed master social worker who works in private practice, is a communications expert, and hosts the Grow Your Guru podcast. She is a longtime supporter of Common Ground and volunteer. We look forward to her unique perspective on the changing mental health landscape and the role Common Ground can play. Please welcome Susie Kamen.
Well, I actually needed a minute after watching that video. I was moved to tears. It really reminded me of why I'm here and why I'm speaking. And seeing Kay today really took me back. I just had a really big birthday, and I was trying not to connect to the age. And in preparing for talking today, I couldn't help but do that. So I'm Susie Kamen. I do not have a podcast anymore, although I will get to my connection to Common Ground with that. I have a bachelor's and a master's in social work from Wayne State, and I also have added some other letters to my name over the years. I am a strategic intervention life coach, and I don't know how many of you might be familiar with Imago therapy. I'm on the board for Imago Michigan, and I'm a certified Imago relationship therapist. I just resigned as vice president. I'm going to stay on the board. I also am looking to get more involved with, I think I mentioned Common Ground and some other endeavors that I'm doing. So I'm in private practice in Farmington Hills, and there's no point in my career that Common Ground has not been pivotal. So when I was an undergrad in the 80s, I offered a field placement at Common Ground, and a therapist that I knew who was older than I was said, take it. You will never go wrong in your career knowing crisis intervention and being connected to Common Ground. And I took it. I was trained on atoms in the original facility, smoking cigarettes, and one of the things that has never changed for me is the integrity of Common Ground. In my training to be on the crisis line, people I trained with or were, going through the training, some were not let through because it matters. And even recently, I had a client who tried to get through the training, and I understand why at the time she was not let through. So one of my many favorite things that I respect about Common Ground is their longstanding, over 33 years of my connection, probably longer, is integrity. The other part of my connection is I've also been a therapist at Camp Tamarack, and we've utilized Common Ground. There's no point in my career that I have not said, let's call Common Ground. I was the school liaison for Farmington Hills Schools. We needed to use Common Ground in some capacity. I don't know how many of you remember the Sarah Fisher Center. I needed to use Common Ground or refer to Common Ground. It's part of my vocabulary. And then as life would go on, I was pregnant in the last year of my graduate program for my social work degree, and my daughter has followed in my footsteps. My daughter, Taylor Kamen Beardsall, was also given the same recommendation. When she was at Wayne State getting her master's in education as an art therapist, someone gave her the same advice. If Common Ground is a field placement, take it, you will never regret it. And she did, and then she continued to be an employee. She was the art therapist at the sanctuary and at the crisis center. And she still, I don't know how many of you know Margaret, they forged a lifelong friendship and started their own facility to provide art therapy and for any income level for people struggling from any number of situations. So, history repeated itself, and so partly then leading to why I'm here is I asked Taylor, what do you want me to tell people? What did you love about Common Ground? And some of the things that she shared was that the sense she got always was integrity as well, and that the environment was collaborative, it was cohesive, always looking, like Heather, what you were saying, how can we do better? Where's there a gap? What can we do better? And Tony, may he rest in peace, also Taylor always felt that expressive arts and services were always respected, however we could serve our community. So one of my philosophies as a therapist with my clients that I am a piece of a puzzle for, by the way, my eyes are I'm still not in my office, okay, I'm only Zooming. I never needed glasses before, so I have this new habit of taking my glasses on and off, so bear with me. Got some screen damage apparently. So one of my philosophies is that I'm a piece of my client's puzzle. Sometimes I'm the only piece, I'm a big piece, and I think a skill that therapists need to recognize and or have the humility to have is when we need adjunct services. Even in private practice, I've worked in clinics, when is that necessary? And how do we assess that? And then if you recognize that, where do you go, right? So EMDR, maybe a 12-step program. And then what do we do in between sessions? What if you need my help? So I decided to prepare for today to do an informal survey. I do want to mention my connection to Heather, though, before I get off track. So I did have a podcast called Grow Your Guru, and the point of it was initially that I wanted to be a voice for people to listen to, even though I don't think I had very many followers at the time, for resources in the community. You know, I had someone that does testing, I had someone that does EMDR, knowing that people don't know what they don't know. And when I launched, I worked with Jeff. That's how I got connected to you, because I kind of refused to launch until I could have Common Ground down as my first guest. So we moved my start date many times, and then we coordinated, and Heather, that's how I fortunately got connected to you. And then a few months later, Kristen was on to talk about the opioid crisis and the sober support unit. People didn't know. People at the place I was doing my podcast, people don't know what they don't know. So I decided to do an informal survey. Statistics was not my best class in grad school, so very informal. And I asked some of my colleagues about Common Ground. Do you know about Common Ground? Do you refer to Common Ground? When you are on vacation, what do you do? I don't know if anyone in here, is anyone a therapist in here by chance? Okay. Well, just so you know, if you ever call a therapist, you don't need to say if you've been in therapy, and you get their voicemail, typically what you'll hear is, hi, I'm Susie Kamen, and I'm not available at this time, leave your name, information, and if this is an emergency, do you know what we say? Go to your nearest emergency room. Okay, why do we not say, or call Common Ground? That actually probably is a better idea for most people, right? So I talked to a lot of my colleagues about what is getting in the way of providing that information. I think we need education. We need to help therapists actually understand why that's actually a better idea or an additional idea, right? So I also, in the presence, and I'm honored, and if people here that donate to an organization that I have forever been connected to and feel passionate about, is every single thing that I did find was positive. The people that did know always had a positive interaction. A couple of people reported to me that they've had clients call Common Ground. One of mine did once when I was out of town, and I asked her what that was like for her. And she said it was validating, soothing, and she wished more people knew about that. Maybe in between sessions. Maybe you don't want to call your therapist at 3 a.m. if you're struggling. And it's a myth that if you're in private practice, there is a level of care in private practice that we need to see and assess if it's appropriate. Even at that level, though, people struggle, or someone has someone they know that is having suicidal ideation and they don't have resources. I think therapists need to be better equipped. We need to figure out a way to bridge that gap. So I will share with you some of the ideas that were provided for me, and I hope after today we can bridge that gap with your help. Some of the therapists said that they didn't even know about the behavioral health program that's opening. One did because she read it in the paper, so she suggested, she happens to be a therapist also and a client, that what if we did more advertising in like NASW, the National Association of Social Workers newsletter. I don't know if we do, so some of this you might be doing. If not, it's a great idea. U of M Wayne State, where there's therapy programs, so we can know that we can inform therapists of how to be better equipped to serve the very population we're serving. Everyone knows someone that is impacted by things that Common Ground deals with. Am I at 10 minutes yet? Just wondering. Am I? I really don't know. Like, I could do this all day and I don't want to at the same time. So, and I think I'll pause there. I really feel like what a lot of people said is all of their experiences with Common Ground have been favorable. It just slips under their radar, and I think we need to do better to have that not happen. And I think we can, and I look forward to being part of any way that I can help do that, because coming full circle, it really moved me to tears watching the history of something I have never swayed or departed from 34 maybe years ago. So thank you for having me. I really am honored. I've never stopped being connected. It was my internship. My favorite memories are sleeping on the floor with a telephone, packing up my bag for the weekend, really, and saying bye to my family and sleeping on the floor and answering the phone. I was watching. Actually, that really struck me, because I haven't really been there since text messaging started. Not that old, a little bit. And it was really magical, laying on a floor with a group of people committed to answering that phone. I'm here for you. And then I just volunteered, and I heard Nancy Moyer retired recently and started with the Victims Assistance Program. I had a beeper. I thought that was very impressive back in the day. And then I was employed there briefly, and like I said, it is never left my heart, and thank you. I'm honored to be here. Thank you for whatever you do to keep this magical organization growing. And like I said, I look forward to being a part of whatever we can do to close that gap between therapists, the therapy field, and what we offer here. Thank you.
So thank you, Susie, for all of that. And we have just a few little things to keep your Common Ground in mind. You just don't get Common Ground out of your head. Once you start, if you just last more than 1 year, you're going to be here forever. Like I've been here for 38 years, so it takes a long time to just love this place. I'm Kay White, and I'm board chair of Common Ground, but I've also been on the crisis line for 38 years, and I am wanting to talk to you today about Common Ground's mission, which is moving people from crisis to hope. Now, hope is a thing, of course, and sometimes I think we think of it as a golden ball that arrives on a silver platter, and we give it to somebody and they're much better. But actually, hope is an action word. It's really not a fantasy. It's not wishful thinking, but it's a way to future successes. When I talk to people on the crisis line who are in panic attacks, for instance, one of the things that we do is 4x4 breathing. So you breathe in for 4, you hold for the count of 4, you exhale for the count of 4, and then you rest for 4. And by the time you do this 5 or 6 times, your panic has somewhat subsided because you're thinking about something else and you're really concentrating on something else. And that gives you the hope that maybe the rest of your day will not be filled with panic. It's an amazing kind of thing that works all the time. Without hope, then we can become apathetic. Sometimes I talk to people who are in substance abuse treatment and they've lapsed. And they're so discouraged because they put in all this hard work and all of a sudden they've derailed. And I talk to them about how, goodness, look how long you were doing well. Maybe it was only 12 hours. Maybe it was 2.5 days. Maybe it was 4 years. But you put in all that time and effort to be better. And you did a good job. And so we can do it again. And this gives hope that there's going to be something else beyond just what they know that day. Hope is an aspect of survival. People who are suicidal don't see any light at the end of the tunnel. It is just solid darkness. And Common Ground is there to offer the chance for just even a tiny bit of light. And the behavioral health urgent care is going to be someplace for people who are feeling that darkness to go to and have someone there right away to help them move on from crisis to hope. And this is going to make a difference to so many people. Hope is an action. Oxford right now, for instance, is a village in crisis. And this is not going to stop. There's all the trials that are coming up. There's the settlements. There's all the different parts of this particular tragedy that are going to keep coming, which is why we have the Resiliency Center. And the Resiliency Center is there to give hope that someday people in Oxford will have somewhat of a life that they can look forward to and not feel the pain of every day. So this is going to be a very important part of our mission and part of our community, is to help to heal. Hope is a social gift, and that means that it's sustained by all of us. And that's why we're here this morning. One of the people who called me one time said, I just got a job. And I said, well, gee, that's wonderful. Why is it so important that you just got this job? And she said, when I lost my previous job, I was anxious, I was depressed, I was worried, and I couldn't afford therapy. I didn't want to talk to my friends, I didn't want to talk to my family, and I called Common Ground. Not for therapy, but for support. And she said, now I have a job, and I have insurance, and I will be able to go into therapy, but in the meantime, the reason that I was able to keep on going was because of Common Ground. So today we're going to have the behavioral health urgent care, and she could have gone to that without any worry about whether or not she had insurance or not, but that wasn't there at the time. But thank goodness Common Ground was. So at this time, I'm going to ask the table captains to pass out the envelopes that they have at their table, and I just wanted to walk you through a few ways that maybe you can help us with our urgent care. The urgent care is a brand new idea, and it's going to be something that's so needed and fill a gap, but we can't do it without your support and your help. So I'm inviting all of you to become legacy members, just like I am, of Common Ground, and all the people you can see listed on here. If you decide to join the Legacy Society at the $1,000 a year for 5-year level, the $1,000 will pay for one Saturday for a nurse practitioner. So as you can see, behavioral health urgent care does not come without a price tag. But a lot of people have Saturdays and Sundays that they want to get help. And that's when we want to be open, and we want to make sure that we have somebody there. And so that gift will make sure that someone is there. $500 a year for 5 years covers the cost of one visit for somebody who is not insured. Now, all of us probably have insurance, but remember, there's a whole world of people that don't have insurance, and we want to be sure that we're open and available for everybody. And so for $500, we can be sure that that person will get the same care that everybody else gets. $100 a year for 5 years means that we can give 1 hour of virtual therapy or interview with somebody. You know, sometimes people don't have transportation, or they just can't leave their home. And so this way we can do virtual visits and be able to connect with people and get them started on the road from crisis to hope. So I'm going to give you all just a couple of minutes to fill out the card and then pass it back to your table captain. And Please be generous. We will value your support. We will use every penny wisely, and it will make a difference. Your support can save lives, and that matters.
We match again.
I know. By the way, there's people who are watching us virtually, and you can go to our website and donate that way if you would like to do that. So we're very pleased that we have people here virtually, another whole group of people watching us, and then everybody that's here in this room.
Put this back. I took it aside. Okay.
We're very grateful for everybody who came today, who gave us the chance to talk to you and to learn about a pretty special organization. You've been kind enough to give your time, your enthusiasm, and your belief in Common Ground. And this matters to all of us because we can't do this alone. We need each and every one of you. Again, thank you for your time. Thank you for your caring. And I hope you have a wonderful day.